All right, we are live. Thank you, everybody, for tuning back in for my Wednesday live stream. Today, I have an extra special guest, somebody who's not only been on his own journey, who's actually
Mhm.
started with me in the beginning of mine, side by side. We've come apart, come together, come apart, come together, but we've both been there. And I know for sure that we've both overcome a lot. Not only learned a lot about ourselves, but a lot of our qualities that were discovered through this process. And I don't know if you forget this or not, Ryan, but you were my very first online fitness client.
Really?
Yep.
I remember doing that work with you. It was working really well for me, but unfortunately, at the time, I had some things going on that I didn't realize were going on. I was never really able to stick with it the way I needed to, but it was a good experience. I'll tell you that. I didn't realize I was your first, though.
Very
Popped
first.
your cherry?
Pop my cherry, my online fitness
Wow.
cherry.
Wow.
My special
That's
moment.
awesome.
Yeah, well, it is awesome. But so I'm going to tell you a little bit about him, what I know. Somebody
Mhm.
I met in a common space, a common men's health space, who has had certain struggles in life growing up. I'm going to let him tell you the story about how a former government employee um, turned certified hypnotherapist. And not only does he teach it, he's done it, he's been through it and applied it to himself. And scores of men have helped overcome limiting beliefs holding them back from succeeding and moving forward in life. So, with that, Ryan Christensen.
Thank you very much for that intro, man. Really appreciate it.
Well, thank you for coming on, dude.
Yeah, man.
It's been a while. You're the first person that popped in my head just driving aimlessly. And you know what it was? I saw your Instagram post
Mm.
and your responses to people on Twitter. I'm like, you know what? Why the hell haven't I asked him yet to come on? Got a great story. And so we can open it up. We're going to lube it up a little bit with some
Sounds
rapid
good.
fire, quick fire stuff. Real simple. Just a couple questions to get to know you a little bit better. So, what does your morning routine look like now in Austin? Or maybe the one
My
that's
morning routine looks like me getting out of bed, fixing a pot of coffee, and getting to it. Like I don't actually have any. I don't meditate in the morning. I don't journal. I don't do the usual gratitude work and stuff like that. I don't take a cold shower. I don't do any of that. A lot of that comes from because of all the work that I've done on myself. Like my baseline mood is very like Zen, chill, content, good mood, general well-being, and that's just like my default state these days. So I don't have to do all the cold showers to crank up my dopamine. I don't have to do the cold plunge to crank up my dopamine. I don't have to do the meditation to clear my mind. It's already clear. So I
so
just get up, grab my pot of coffee, and hit it.
no frills. Pop up and
No frills.
hit the floor running.
Pretty much. Pretty much.
And here's an interesting little curveball. If you
Hmm.
could go forward or backward at any time travel to any spot, any time in history, where would you go and why?
Man, that is a really great question. Um, where would I go?
Would you go? Would you go see Abraham Lincoln? Would you go to the gladiator days?
You know what? You know what I think I'd do? I'd go back and I'd visit the Library of Alexandria before it got burned down.
Nice. Good choice.
That is something that I think would be a fascinating experience to see that thing in its reality and its totality before it got burned down, because it was at the time like the greatest storehouse of human knowledge, and it got
Yeah.
raided, I think, by the Mongols, if I remember
Mongols
right.
did,
It's
yeah.
been a long
Genghis
time.
Khan.
Yep. Genghis Khan burned it down. It's like, man, so much was lost from that period, and we just don't know what was there. There's no way for us to recover it. And I think it would have been interesting to see that before it went.
Is it interesting to think the wisdom, the knowledge, even the potential technology that we could have seen that we'll never know about now? And it may never repeat
Absolutely.
itself.
May never. Because the problem with the internet is there's so much stuff on there that's crap.
I'm starting
You
to
know,
notice that.
there's all this information, more than any individual could consume in a lifetime.
Wait a minute.
But
You
back
don't
then,
believe there's
anything
a
that
way you can make $1 million in a week? You don't believe that?
I think there are ways you can. I don't think it's very reliable, and I wouldn't want to try most of them because most of them are going to get you in jail. or require you to bet everything you own on a single dice roll. I'm like, I think I'll pass. I think I'll pass.
Good choice. I'm glad you did that work. So look, Dubs is in the house. Look at him.
Hey, man, how you doing?
That's my admin there. Y'all better be on point. Dubs has got a sweaty finger, ready to kick somebody out. Can you give me
I regulate.
Let me see something. He says, my editor is calling me saying, switch the screen to full view for a better layout. He's watching. I don't know how to do that. Sorry, Joel. Thanks for the heads up, but I don't know how to do that. If you want to text me or, there we go. Is that what he's talking about?
There you go. I think that's what he was talking about.
Yeah. Thank you, Joel. Thank you. Always looking out. That's my guy there. Guys, Joel Henry, everybody knows him from my channel. Sobriety University. Great guy, great teammate. My editor puts all my content together. Has his own program for sobriety and recovery. Sobriety University. Won't forget. And all right, moving right along, Ryan. I apologize for the interruption.
No worries at all, man.
So, all right, good choice. And I like to hear that because I don't have a fancy morning routine either. You don't eat breakfast, no food, no nothing, coffee and go. Huh?
I usually don't. Yeah, just black coffee until noon rolls around, and I'll go ahead and have lunch then. Dinner usually 6, 7 o'clock at night, depending upon whether I do boxing in the evening or not. So,
one more thing, real quick. Are you doing any kind of keto, paleo, anything like that? Or you just watching what you eat? Well, you're not watching.
Just doing, I'm just watching what I eat for the most part. There's a book called The Potato Hack, which is all about just like using potatoes as a basis of your diet, like during the day or like for a couple of days during the week as a way to, it's really about gut health more than anything else because like the resistant starches in potatoes just like really help keep everything clean and moving. And I found that works pretty well for me. It's kind of like just during the day, I'll just eat like baked potatoes, mashed potatoes, French fries, oven roasted potatoes. And then in the evening, I'll just eat whatever the heck I want, Get my protein in that way. Yeah. Oh my God.
Don't threaten me with a good time. I'll make an excuse to eat as many French fries as I can. Everywhere I go, I get a side of fries. I love fries. I like the truffle fries, string fries, steak fries, crinkle cut, waffle cut.
100%. 100%. But not sweet potato fries. I'm not a big fan of those.
No, sweet potatoes are not meant to be fried and eaten like fries.
No.
My son likes those. Look at Joel knows about that potato diet.
Yep.
So,
it'll usually lose me about 2 or 3 pounds a week.
No shit.
No shit.
Damn.
Yeah.
I have to try it because I love potatoes and I stay away from too many carbs because I'm a carb eater. I love carbs. Mm-hmm. And if I'm not careful, I will overload. I'll do too many. But I train pretty hard between jiu-jitsu and working out and the work I do. I can afford some carbs. But I try to do it, I'll load up on my training days. Colin McKay. Hello, Colin. Thank you for coming in, man. Hit that like button if you didn't. And so what? Let's get into this, man. I want to know more about you. I want these people to hear your story. I think you got a great story. And I want to share. So why don't you tell us about where you grew up?
Well, I was born in Alabama, but I grew up in Kansas for the most part. It's Wichita, so 330,000 people. So it's big enough to pretend to be a city, but not actually have a whole lot going on. And honestly, it was, overall it's okay. It was okay. But the problem is, and I just found this out recently, I have Asperger's syndrome. So I'm actually on the autism spectrum. Didn't find that out until last year. So if you get an autistic kid with high IQ living in Kansas in the 70s and 80s, it's very, very apparent that you're the thing that's wrong because everyone else seems to be able to get through life just fine. Everyone else is making friends and doing everything they need to do, and you're the odd man out. So it's hard to overstate how difficult that is when like you are the thing that is wrong in the world around you, where everyone else around you seems to get it and you just don't. And so, 9, 10 years old, I'm in 4th grade, and I basically just given up on life at that point where I was actually failing 4th grade. I was going to Catholic school. I was actually failing 4th grade, right?
Well, I can't imagine being that young and like you genuinely think into your heart of hearts and burying into your deepest part of your soul that you're the problem. There's something wrong with you.
Oh, yeah.
How long was your environment?
Well, sort of. I mean, I'm built different. I'm built very different, right? I've got ADHD, I've got bipolar disorder, I've got Asperger's syndrome, I got an IQ of like 140, 145. Like I am not built normal. I am not normal, period. But that doesn't mean there's something wrong with me. It just means I'm built different. I'm designed for a different environment that I was actually able to inhabit, it doesn't, ain't nobody's fault, right? It's not my fault, not my folks' fault, nobody's fault at all. It's just, I was not in the right kind of environment and nobody knew what to do with me. So I remember standing in the bedroom of my folks' house, 9, 10 years old, and trying to figure out whether I could get the barrel of my dad's shotgun underneath my chin and still reach the trigger, and I'm not alone in that. You would be surprised at how many people have been on that edge where life just isn't worth living, or I even had one client that actually tried ending his life at like 8 years old. He was going through a heck of a lot more than I was, but like, these things can happen and start really young ages, right? And the vast majority of my clients have been in some really dark places in their life. It's one of these things that happens to a large number of us. But because of that, essentially I was in a space where life wasn't worth living the way it is, and I knew that I was never really going to get what I needed in life, and so my mind kind of offered me a choice. It's like,
come to that realization at 10, man.
Yeah. So it was interesting because my mind basically offered me a different choice. It's like, okay, because when you're in that space, it's like, okay, I knew with absolute certainty that I was never going to be able to get what I wanted in life. I was never going to get what I needed, never going to get what I wanted. I was always going to be the odd man out. That's just how life was going to be forever. But I had that choice on how long that was going to be. And there's power in that, right? But now my mind has to try and keep me alive. So it basically gave me another choice. It's like, okay, you can suffer forever or you can become Batman. It's like, okay, it's really, much better option. So, okay, fine, I'll become Batman. I'll try and save the world, become that knight in shining armor. I used to read a lot of military fiction, a lot of sci-fi, a lot of, fantasy novels, stuff like that. And so the concept of heroic sacrifice was something I was very familiar with all my life. It's something that's very important. This idea of I will suffer so that other people don't have to. It's like, okay, I'll take that option. And I was like, okay, great. So like, where's Wayne Manor? Where's my, big company? It's like, oh, no, I'm sorry. You misunderstood. I said you become Batman. I didn't say anything about you becoming Bruce Wayne.
Yeah, right.
You don't get to have that. Right. But just if you think about it, just the Batcave, you get you're out there getting your butt kicked day after day after day. You're out there with people who don't understand you, who vilify you, right? Mm-hmm. But it's a good thing that Batman's around doing what he does. Otherwise, Gotham City would be even worse off. So there's an ability and there's a value in that, right? There's a reason for me to continue to exist, even though I'm never going to get what I need from me, because I can provide for others. I can do for other people, right? And so that's what pretty much guided me throughout most of my years. I was throwing myself under the bus for people I dated, friends, and stuff like that. And then eventually, was it 21, almost 22 years old, I decided to run away and join the Marine Corps because I knew that staying in Kansas was going to be like, that was going to be Groundhog Day. It was not going to end well for me, and it was not going to take very long for it to end well for, and badly for me. It was just, that was me being trapped. So ran away and joined the Marines. And that was a very interesting experience. It was a very good learning experience for me. I was not a particularly good Marine. Having Asperger's and undiagnosed bipolar does not make you very congruent for the military. Let's put it that way. So right. My days in the Marine Corps were not covered in glory, but I did what I did, and I did my job well enough. Got out, ended up joining the Air National Guard and working intel for them as well.
What did you do in the Marine Corps? What did you do?
I was a Russian linguist. So my job was to listen in to all the stuff we were stealing from the Russians and translate it so that we could figure out what they were doing. So I was in intelligence for a total of 23 years. 5 years in the Marines, another 6 with the Air National Guard, and then 16, 17 years as a contractor in DC, working counterterrorism, counterproliferation, stuff like that, right? Got married along the way. After I left the Marines, that fell apart. She moved to Tennessee, took my kids with her, and I ended up moving to DC and doing the contracting gig out there. And that was an amazing time in a lot of ways. I got to do some really, really cool stuff. I got to make a big impact in a lot of ways. It very much allowed me to leverage kind of like this analytical autism brain that I have to just like take things apart. It was great.
Useful.
I got to fly around playing International Man of Mystery for a number of years, which was phenomenal. Got to go to all kinds of interesting places around the world.
Before you get too far, I want to rewind back a little bit. You go to the Marines.
Yep.
before that, when did you start dating? Like seriously dating, where you're entering in relationships?
Mm.
And how did that look? How did your personality and what you had gone through, how did that look? How did that show up in relationships? You kind of brushed on it by saying trying to save yourself, save everybody, keeping each other warm, keeping others warm by setting yourself on fire. How did that look? Like,
yes.
Go a little deeper into that.
Well, my first girlfriend actually picked me up. She thought I was going to be a good catch for later on, so she snatched me in the freshman year of high school. Nice. I'm not going to complain, right? But for the majority of my relationships, you know, I would get in relationships with people, and it was always about trying to make sure that they were happy. You know, it was being not necessarily the nice guy, or not being like, it was trying to make them happy, trying to figure out what they needed, trying to figure out what they needed me to be, you know?
Maybe neglecting yourself a little bit.
100%, 100%. Neglecting my boundaries and everything else. But the other piece is because of the Asperger's, it's like having Asperger's is kind of like being colorblind socially, where like you guys see detail in social interactions that I'm just blind to. I just can't perceive it. Don't even know it's there. So it's really easy for me to miss all the subtle cues that they're sending me that things are wrong or that things need to change or they're not happy and so forth and so on.
So just very matter of fact, right?
In a lot of ways, like I could tell that something's wrong, but I have no idea what it is. Whereas you guys would be able to actually understand like what the actual dynamics are that are going on. So a lot of my relationships would last, you know, year and a half and then fall apart because we weren't able to really communicate, weren't able to really resolve conflicts and that sort of thing. Got married the first time in the Marines. I was, let's see, how old was I? 25, 24, 24. 24 years old first time I got married. And that was very much a situation where I had met this girl while I was in language school for the Marines. She was in the Air Force, and I didn't think I was going to do any better. So I said, all right, here we go. We'll pick this one, right?
So along with the Asperger's, undiagnosed bipolar, ADHD, a case of low self-esteem, maybe?
100%.
Poor self-perception. 100%. Let me just lock this down.
Let me just go ahead and lock this down because this is the best I'm going to be able to do. And that went sideways pretty quickly. After our first child was born, she broke down. She had a lot of stuff going on in her life whenever she was young that just kind of came back and ambushed her out of nowhere. And so here I am in the Marine Corps trying to be a good Marine and be a father and be a husband and take care of the wife and pay the bills. And like as junior enlisted in the Marine Corps, like you're not making much money. I think I was making $1,400, maybe $1,600 a month. And we were living in Hawaii, stationed in Hawaii. So like we were on food stamps on top of all that. Like,
so this is back in the 80s, right?
This is this is late 90s, early 2000s.
Okay.
97, 02.
Okay, wow.
Yeah.
Still, the cost of living in Hawaii is higher.
Oh, yeah. Massively high. $1,600 a month is not enough to feed you and your wife and your kid and take care of all the bills and everything else. It's just not. So, you know, it wasn't very, it was actually pretty common for people on the base to be on food stamps and getting food assistance and other stuff like that. It was common, which is sad to say the least, that you got people who are serving and putting their lives on the line and all that, you know, and they can't afford to put food on the table.
It's tragic.
It is, but it's the way things go. So yeah, so after I got out of the Marine Corps and my first wife and I separated, moved to DC. I was working in the International Guard, so worked U-2s and Predators. I also worked F-16s and F-22 Raptors for them, which was interesting times. But all of my real accomplishments came from the contracting side of things, working counterterrorism, working counterproliferation. Like that's really where I was having a huge impact. So,
and you were still in counterterrorism when I met you.
Yeah,
I remember.
Yep. Yeah, actually, at that time, I was doing counterproliferation by the time I was working with you guys. Because that was 2019 when I first got in those communities. I think you and I met 2019, 2020. Yep.
2019.
Yep. Right before the pandemic. Yep.
So,
so I did that. Got married again, got divorced again. And again, it's a situation where great woman. She really was. We actually went to the same high school growing up, which was kind of an interesting little little bit of serendipity, but again, the whole communication issues. Not being able, not knowing why I couldn't communicate, not knowing why she didn't understand, not knowing why I couldn't pick up on things. It was just something that we couldn't overcome.
So when you say the inability to communicate, can you drill down a little deeper? Like meaning what? Like you couldn't pick up on the cues she was giving you? Was she not being direct enough? Or was she being direct and you just didn't understand it, so it didn't matter? Like
it was a lot of different things. It was the not being able to pick up on cues. It was the, she wasn't communicating in a way that I could really get what was going on for her. She tended to be very avoidant in a lot of ways. And so it was hard to pin her down and actually like have a hard conversation about things. She didn't really want to deal with stuff. And so here I am trying to do the best I can with what I understand, and what I understand is clearly not what's going on. So I'm doing the best I can, but I've got bad data, so I can't really make good decisions. I can't really find good solutions because I don't know what the problem really is.
And I could imagine a lot of attempting to try to apply a lot of logic and reason into emotion.
Yep. Well,
inject that, force that.
One of the things about bipolar disorder is like normal people have an emotional range like this, and my emotional range is like way out here, right? Yeah. So going on these big emotional swings with all this stuff was, made everything difficult, right? Arguments would get really heated really easily, real quickly. It was about that time I started on testosterone because I realized my testosterone was in low 200s in my late 30s, which was not good. And so getting that back up in that normal range, 600-800, I was like, oh my God, I've been PMSing for like a decade. it was like, man, such a huge difference in terms of my ability to actually have emotional control to the extent that you can when you're bipolar, right? Absolutely. But our argument styles did not match. We ended up really kind of pushing each other's buttons. And so, we were just never really able to come together and resolve the problems that would come up. And that was a shame, But I kind of give myself a mulligan for any relationship prior to the last year, because like if you have undiagnosed bipolar, undiagnosed Asperger's, like you're doomed. You're just doomed. There's not really a way to have a good, healthy, communicative relationship when you have no idea that you're that messed up in the head.
Yeah. How do you know that?
Yeah.
So you've gone through all these things. You've grown up feeling out of place, different to the point of almost suicide at 10 years old. It's so hard to fathom. It's hard to swallow. Then. So you do what most people do in a small town, and you leave. You go join the military. You find some new experience, new adventures. You find a little bit of a niche and intelligence. You're able to expand your thinking and use your high IQ ability, because a high IQ person stuck in a small-minded community, that does not work well. And you need to exercise that intelligence. That needs to be worked, just like anything. And you need something to challenge that.
Yeah, you really do.
You go through two marriages.
Yeah, I'll tell you, that's really why intelligence was such a huge piece for me. Such a huge part of my life. Like that's really what I live for, because every day it's like you walk in the door, it's like, okay, what's on fire? What problem do I need to solve?
Couldn't wait.
Couldn't wait.
I can see that. And not only that, you got to figure this childhood where you felt different and useless. You finally have purpose and you have meaning.
Yes.
Like you have a purpose and you're useful. There's nothing a man wants more than to be useful.
Yeah. And I'll tell you, growing up, like, it's not that I knew I was smart and I knew I was good at stuff, but everything that I was good at seemed to make me weirder.
Yeah.
And fit in even less. And here I'm in an environment where for the first time and basically forever, in my entire life, like the weirdness about me, the way that I'm built, is an advantage and not a disadvantage, where it actually got me like praise and kudos and accepted and valued.
Yeah.
For the first time in like ever in my life.
I had to feel amazing.
Oh, it was awesome. It was absolutely amazing. Absolutely amazing.
So you're moving forward to your intelligence career. You're divorced again.
Divorced again.
Well, so the next phase is you starting to take a look at things. Something just isn't lining up. Like, there's something I need to be paying better attention to. When did that start? 100%. And what did that look like?
So got divorced in early 2018 and started dating a lady pretty much right away. And we broke up in the summer of 2019. And I started to try dating again in DC. And, up until that point, I had been dating in alternative sexuality communities, the BDSM world and everything else is kind of like where my dating pool was for a very long time. And I left that place because, the scene had gotten just toxic and just ugly and just, those were not my people anymore. Right. So now I have to figure out how to date normal people in DC. And DC is a terrible, terrible dating market to begin with. And I was trying to find people on like Tinder and Hinge and Bumble, and it was just not working. So that's when I started getting into Red Pill and getting into a little stuff again and watching guys like Rich Cooper and watching guys like John from Modern Life Dating.
Well, what prompted, like, how did you come across the Red Pill? I know for me, I just happened to stumble across it looking through, I don't even remember exactly how, but I came across it. I saw a clip of, you remember the Red Man group back then, Rolo Rich, MLD, and Ryan Stone. Remember that back in the day?
100%.
And they just started talking about shit. And I'm like, damn, that makes sense.
Well, it was very much a situation where, like back in 2007, 2008, I kind of got into pickup stuff for a little while and came across Rolo's blog back then, Ian Ireland's blog, The Red Pill back then. And so when my marriage was falling apart near the end there, I went back to that old source material, like, okay, what the hell am I doing wrong? Trying to figure out what's going on. Right. So I first got back into Red Pill stuff in an effort to figure out how to save my marriage. But then I started dating a lady right away, right after I got divorced and right after we separated. And so I didn't need that again at that point. It works, I didn't need it. So after that relationship ended, after I started getting horrible results in the dating market in DC, I went back to the roots. It's like, okay, let me go back to pick up her stuff. I'm obviously missing something. Obviously, there's things I didn't learn. So, looked up Rolo again, saw he had his books out, and just kind of started going down the rabbit hole. And that's kind of how I got to John and Rich and everybody else.
And so what door did that open for you? Like, did it just click? Have you read The Rational Male? Is that your first book you started with?
Yeah. I started with that one, and then I started with
me. That was profound. That was like a kick in the dick from a horse, from a thoroughbred. I mean, I was like, wow, like all this stuff. For so long, I had a feeling that this stuff was true. I was led to believe it wasn't. Here it is. It's evidence. I knew I wasn't crazy.
Yep.
I was angry for a minute. I was confused. Like, how did you take that? Were you glad? Were you really?
It's a situation where I always think of the world. I think of people. I think of everything in terms of systems. Okay, like things happen that gets processed in your head, and then you do something in response. There's a system. There's an algorithm to translate A to B, right? And so to have something like their first Rational Male book come out and say, okay, here's how things really work. It's like, okay, now I understand how the mechanism is converting A to B. It's like, okay, click. Now I get how this mechanism works. Now I understand how the system works. It's like, I get it, right? Mm-hmm. And being in some of the alternative sexuality communities and seeing all the BDSM stuff and everything else, and kind of like, it's kind of like taking the Red Pill to an extreme because you already see those dynamics in play.
The dominance, yeah.
The dominance and submission piece, the hypergamy piece, mm-hmm. A lot of the different things you see play out in that scene in a very obvious way that you don't see in normal dating relationships, So it was kind of like a confirmation of things that I had already known. But like I read the Rational Male's or his blog before his book was published back in 2006, 2007, something like that. So I was already carrying those principles into a lot of what I was doing. So it's more of a coming back home and actually having something that was a pre-existing manufactured framework of like, just use this framework and this is all you need to do to navigate your situation. And it worked to a large degree. It worked for a while there. I started working with John. Yeah, I started working with John, started getting success in the dating realm again. And that was what I was looking for. After I moved to Austin, got another relationship. That one was well for about 1.5 years, and that ended last year. And in that relationship, I started realizing a lot of the limitations of what the Red Pill can really deliver. And that's when I kind of left the Red Pill space in fall of 2022. I just I was realizing that I needed other resources. I needed other models to create what I really wanted to in relationship. Because Red Pill is really good about getting you into relationships, especially shorter term relationships, but it doesn't really tell you how to do long term and committed.
Well, And look, every guy who I've met, including you, including me, just wanted to learn how to be in a long-term healthy relationship.
Yeah.
And these guys, they start out, and I recommend, if you have no experience, go date a little while. Go see what it's like. Go get that experience. Go learn what you can, like the commonality between all women. There's different degrees and subtle variations, but there are definitely common traits that run across all women. And I suggest you go learn that. And use it as a tool in your future moving forward. Experience for a man is sexy, and experience for a man is valuable. But you're right. At some point, the red pill took a turn. Like with the place I entered, it's not the same place. It's toxic.
Yeah, well,
there's aspects of it, but they're all useful.
Yeah, it's the way I see it is this: every set of beliefs, every philosophy, or it's a praxeology, I guess, is what they call it. It's designed to produce a particular result, right? So it's a system, it's a tool that's designed to produce a particular result. And the way I see the red pill is that the red pill is designed so that men can get access to sex on their terms and not have to be emotionally vulnerable.
Yes.
Right? You don't have to be emotionally vulnerable. You don't have to get hurt again, and you get access to sex on your terms. And that's amazing for a lot of people who've been through a lot of pain and don't succeed in the bedroom the way that they really want to, right? Especially if they've gone through a lot of rough times with women. It's incredibly seductive. But there's limitations to how far you can take a relationship if that's the model that you have.
Well, yeah, and I preach to the guys all the time here that's good. Like once you learn how to pick up,
it's a good start.
And fuck, that's the easy part.
Yes.
Doing that long term in a healthy, loving, mature, committed relationship where there's an exchange, that's where the real work is, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I think that inability to be emotionally vulnerable limits the relationship so much because any woman who has any decent amount of self-esteem and has any real idea of what her value is and what she brings to the table and someone who's actually quality enough to be a partner to you in your struggles in life and actually capable of going through life with you is not going to put up with someone who's not emotionally vulnerable.
So give us your take on emotional vulnerability.
Great question. Okay, so there was a tantra workshop that I went to after my last relationship ended. I was talking about compatibility across 3 different dimensions in terms of like consciousness, in terms of emotional compatibility, and then in terms of sexual compatibility. And you need all of those to work together in order to actually have a stable, healthy relationship, a stable, healthy connection, right? You've got to be on the same wavelength consciously. If you guys are moving in different circles in terms of intelligence, in terms of values, in terms of goals, that's not going to work. But you also have to both be able to be compatible emotionally. And if you don't allow yourself to feel, if you never allow her to see how you feel, if you never actually show her who you are, how the hell can she connect with you?
Very, very true.
She can't, right? The only thing that you're showing her is a facade. You're not actually showing them the real parts of you. You're not actually allowing her into your world. So she's just an accessory in your world. You don't actually have a relationship in a lot of ways.
And not only that comes across as insecurity to me. Like you really don't like yourself.
Yeah. In a lot of ways. It comes across, there was a guy by the name of Alexander. His Twitter handle is DatePsych, DATEPSYCH. He's a relationship psychologist, and he was talking about how it comes across as weak.
Well, I mean, if you break down vulnerability to its simple form, it basically describes being weak.
Well, it's not weak. It's about vulnerability means you can be harmed.
That's what I wanted you to get into. That's what I wanted.
Vulnerability means you can be harmed. And the thing is, weakness is the unwillingness to be hurt.
Yes.
Right. If you look at toughness as a principle or as a value, it's the ability to withstand getting hurt. Right. We celebrate all this like physical strength and all this physical toughness. Okay, great. Are you also emotionally tough? Are you willing to be hurt emotionally?
Oh, that's such a good
point. Or are you so fragile? If you are so fragile that you can't take it?
Well, so you have light and black, dark and light. If you want to go through the full spectrum of what it means to be in love and experience that, have that full experience, you got to be open enough to being hurt. The exact opposite of that.
100%. Well, there's a couple of things, because if you're not willing to experience the full spectrum of human emotion, you're basically saying, I don't want to be human, right? I can't be human, right? I can't actually live a full life, right? Because any life that you're taking any kind of risk in, any life where you're actually pushing yourself in any way, you're going to come across obstacles. You're going to lose. You're going to get hurt in some way, shape, or form.
You're going to fail.
And so saying, yeah, you're going to fail. There's going to be a day when your best is not enough and you will freaking lose, and there's nothing you can do about it. And that is going to be a rough freaking day. But if you are willing to suffer physically or emotionally, like, there's not much that can actually stop you. You know what? Right? Because if it's like, I'm willing to suffer more than you will, I will outwork you, and I will win every single time, as long as I'm willing to suffer more than you're willing to suffer. And you take that into that realm of emotions. It's like, if you are willing to suffer emotionally, if you're willing to take that pain long enough to figure out what the heck is going on, then you can actually find the solutions to the problems that are going on. But if you are unwilling to feel that pain, if you're unwilling to go there, you're going to be completely unaware of all kinds of different problems and unable to handle it, right? And if that's the case, then there's no way in heck that you can actually have a stable relationship, because you're not allowing yourself to acknowledge or deal with any of the major problems that are going to come up.
Well, I want to clear this up before you go too much further on this, and I think
Sure.
I can speak for you on this, that you don't mean just being emotionally unregulated and flailing emotions all over the place, just dumping shit.
Correct.
Because it pops in your head where you get a certain feeling. It's like, hey, I feel like this. Like,
Right,
of course,
right.
you're talking about a healthy, emotionally regulated, and well-integrated man.
Yes, 100%, 100%. Because the inability to control your reaction to your emotions is also what? It's a sign of weakness. It's a sign you're undisciplined. It's a sign that you're not in control of yourself, right?
Yeah.
But being able to express express any emotion that does come up, and saying like, no, I feel like crap right now. I'm freaking broken right now. You know, being able to do that, you have to be strong to do that, because you have to be willing to sit in that pain in order to acknowledge it and own it.
Well, what would you say to somebody who said, let me play devil's advocate here? You
Sure.
also have to be strong to keep that to yourself and work through it.
Is that actually the best strategy, though?
I don't know.
Because I'm not so convinced that it is. Because here's the real thing, or the real issue with that. If you're always playing the stoic and always hiding your emotions, then that means the only person that can process that and find a solution to whatever the problem is you, with the resources you have at that point in time.
Right.
And there's going to be times when you're going to come up with something that you can't solve on your own.
Well,
And if that's the case, you're going to come up. Everybody has limits. Even the smartest of us, most capable of us, most experienced of us, we have limits. So there's going to be problems that we're going to run into that we can't solve ourselves.
let me clarify that, because I do agree with what you're saying, and I do believe that when there's something you run into, and if you have limited resources and you're a stranger in this world, you need to go seek help. What I meant was
showing it to your woman.
Showing it to your woman. That's exactly what I meant.
And that's the thing is, like, if your woman is actually there, it depends upon the kind of relationship you're trying to build. Right? If you are doing the standard red pill thing of like, she comes in and has the world because you're a winner, she's an accessory. Right? She's not actually there to help you in any way, shape, or form. She's not actually building anything with you. She's just an accessory. Right?
Yes,
and if that's the case, no, you can't show them that vulnerability. You can't show them that emotion, because that's a sign that, oh my God, this perfect thing that you're offering me isn't perfect, right? They don't have the amusement park ride anymore. It's all of a sudden it's real, and they don't have the capacity to build with you, and it's fake. And it's fake. But if you're in something where the two of you are coming together deliberately to build something together deliberately, and you're both all in on it, that's a kind of a different story. Because you're saying, hey, look, I don't know how to handle, I don't know what the solution is. Here's where I'm at. What do you see? You're not asking, you don't ask her to fix it for you. You don't ask her to make you better. You say, what are you seeing? What are you seeing that I'm not? I don't see the way out. There's something I'm missing. What am I missing? And because women's brains are fundamentally built so freaking different than ours are, she's going to be seeing the situation in a fundamentally different way, and she's going to see something that you don't. And sometimes that's all you need, is that just one little door to open, or that one little clue to lead you down a different line of inquiry so that you can solve the problem. Right? Are there things you don't take to your woman? Yes, of course. Absolutely. It's called discernment. You got to know what to open up about and what not to open up about, right? But if you're freaking stressed all the time because work is not going well and your business is like in real trouble, you think she's not going to notice?
Hey, I've been through that, and I kept it to myself, and I kept her in the dark, and it did not work out well.
No, because you're essentially you're lying by omission, and she knows it because she's not stupid, right?
Especially when they know you really well.
Especially when they know you really well. So instead of trying to play that stupid game of lying to them by omission and trying to pretend you're something you're not in that moment, say, here's where I'm at. This is what's going on. But if you're doing it from a perspective of, and I'm trying to fix it, and I've got it under control, you're not showing a weakness. You're showing that you're human.
That's exactly where I wanted you to reach. That's exactly the point I knew you would get to. Reassurance that you got it.
Yeah.
You just stuck a little bit. You're stuck in the mud.
Yeah. And if they are actually the kind of person that's building something with you, they will want you to succeed. They're not going to tear you down in that moment. They're going to leverage everything that they can to get you moving again. Because that's what they want from you, is to get you moving again. Right? So let them help. Emotions are what they're good at, for God's sakes. Right?
That's their thing.
Emotions are what they're good at. That's their thing. So let them do what they're good at.
Man, that's a great perspective. I'm so glad we got to talk about that.
Yeah. I'll tell you, it's, my last relationship taught me a lot, opened my eyes to a lot of things I've been blind to before, for sure. And that's one of the things that I think is so important, is that when you're in a committed relationship and when you're trying to build something with somebody, even if it's not working well, you will learn so damn much about yourself. You will learn so damn much about how you work and how people work, that to me, it's worth it, even if it doesn't work out.
If you're honest and pay attention, if you can be honest with yourself.
100%. But that's what, like, as men, that's what we're supposed to be doing, right? Is figuring out how to make things work. And that means that every failure, everything that goes wrong, we got to learn the lessons from it. Because in every failure, there is a lesson. There's knowledge. There's experience there. And if you extract that value, everything becomes easier and easier.
Well, yeah. You're learning real life lessons in real time. The things that stick, the things that matter, to fundamentally change you as a person.
Yep.
For the better. So you go through that, the divorce, 2019, you find the red pill, you come into the men's help space, you start getting really involved, you're having questions.
Yep.
So besides finding the content, like what kind of work did it take for you to overcome these things that you carried with you into relationships and adulthood from childhood? And where did some of that stuff, and I'm gonna let you say what it is, stem from?
So early 2021, beginning of 2021, I decided that I was going on a self-improvement, self-help jihad. Like, I was fucking done. Screwing out with this. I was done being broken. I was done not understanding what was going on with me. I was done. So it's time to go to war. And so between 2021 and the end of 2023, I did pretty much everything you could do to try and figure out what was wrong with me. Now, I had done therapy for decades. I did coaching stuff. I was in different men's groups. I did somatic work, energetic work. I did freaking spiritual retreats. I did psychedelics. I did breath work. I did hypnosis. I did fucking everything. I spent over $120,000 over the course of those 2 years sorting myself out. Right. And
which is good, by the way. I'm proud of you for doing that.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you, it took that much, because what I was realizing along the way was that the stuff that I was working wasn't actually, the stuff that I was doing wasn't actually working the way it should. I do this work on beliefs, and they change these surface level beliefs, but the deep stuff wouldn't be changed. I go on these psychedelic journeys and I get all this amazing insight, and then my behavior wouldn't actually change, And so through the course of all that, there were several like revelations I had along the way that were just, I would have never thought that I would have had to figure that out on my own. Right. I remember the first time that happened to me, I was talking with one of the guys working on some beliefs, and I realized, I was throwing myself under the bus all the time, light myself on fire to keep people warm. Right. And I was realizing how much that hurt to do.
Uh-huh.
And I realized, like, oh, fuck. I'm throwing myself under the bus and it hurts. And I'm throwing away garbage. Doesn't hurt to throw away garbage because it has no value. So I have to be throwing away something that has value if this hurts, which means that I have to have value as a person.
Wow.
It's the first time in my life I had actually considered the idea of me having value as a person. Up until then, I didn't have any value. There was nothing I was going to give for myself. But like at that moment, it's like, oh crap, I have value. No idea how much. That's a completely different story.
Yeah, how much and what it is, right?
Yeah, how much and what it is. But it's like at least I get to this point where I have value, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then a couple of months later, I go to this retreat, do a couple of days worth of psychedelics, and which was amazing, cracked open all kinds of things for me. A very spiritual experience, a very transformative experience in that way. But I'm sitting there in the recliner on the Airbnb, hanging out, and I was like, man, I love my life. I'm so excited for all these things I get to do. I'm so excited for who I get to become and how I'm going to get all these things that I've wanted for so long. And then it hit me. It's like a ton of bricks. It's like, that's the first time you're ever feeling that. Like that was the first time I ever felt like life was actually worth living. And that was possible to get what I wanted in life. 45 years old. Got a tattoo on my chest. I am alive. And the date is July 29th, 2021, because that's the first fucking day in my life that I actually believed that life was worth living and I could get what I wanted. I broke. Dude, I think I rolled for like 30 damn minutes because it hit that freaking hard. So 9 months later, I'm still trying to get the entrepreneur thing running and everything else. And I'm doing some more hypnosis work with a lady. And I'm realizing that I had let go of this idea of I have to sacrifice myself to save the world. Like that's my reason for living. But I didn't have a new one yet. I didn't have a new reason for living yet. And I'm sitting there grasping around and trying to figure out what measuring stick I use to figure out how much value I have. And then it hit me. I'm like, wait a second. I'm trying to justify my existence again.
I'm glad you said that because I tell these guys all the time that it's important that you find the source, find what it is, discard it, redirect it, but you got to find something to put in its place.
Right.
You will organically default back to that.
Here's the tricky thing because that's not actually that's not a good thing because you're just replacing one external mechanism of motivation for another external motivation. Because the thing that I realized is like, wait a second, I want to be alive.
Yeah.
I actually want to be alive for the first time in my life. I don't have to justify it anymore. I don't have to justify my existence anymore. I actually want to live. And so I don't have to justify it. I don't have to have a reason. I don't have to have a measuring stick. I don't have to have any of that.
Well, the realization, that's it.
And realizing that broke my freaking brain so hard, I felt like I was on mushrooms for 3 days.
No shit.
Yeah.
That's powerful.
Because I'd spent my entire freaking life justifying why I should be alive, why I should be allowed to continue to live. And it hit me. It's like, wait a second. I don't actually have to do that because I want to be here.
That's deep.
Yeah. And, the hits just keep on coming. And I've realized so many different things about how the mind works and why we are the way we are along the way because of working with all kinds of different clients that had all kinds of issues, realizing this stuff in myself. And I'll tell you, one of the biggest realizations I had is that we hold beliefs at different levels of resolution. Okay. So on if you think about your mind as having like an instinctive mind and then an emotional mind and then a rational mind, and then you've got consciousness on top. Okay. That's kind of how the brain developed over the
Say that again.
You have an instinctive mind, right? And that part of your mind is there to keep you breathing.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
That's you're going from deepest to surface.
Deepest to surface, right? The next one is your emotional mind. And your emotional mind is concerned with how you interact with other people. and kind of like your place in the world. That's all emotional. It's not rational. Your rational mind is concerned with objective truth, how things really work, the outside world, the external world, right? Whereas your emotional mind is your subjective internal world, your irrational mind is worried about the external world, the verifiable stuff, the objective truth, right? And you got consciousness sitting on top of all that. And he's kind of like the CEO, kind of picking that long-term direction. He's concerned about like what we should do, what we want to do, those kinds of questions, okay? But what that means is you actually have different beliefs of different complexity operating at each of those different levels of mind. And when we talk about beliefs, most of the time we're talking about it from a rational perspective of like, okay, I'm not good enough because I don't have six-pack abs, right? Or I'm not lovable because like I'm too fat, or I'm only 5'8" and I'm a manlet and I'll never get laid, right? Or whatever that happens to be, right? Those are very specific, very rational constructs. And so that's a belief in the rational mind. But what I was realizing is I was doing all this work to solve all these rational mind beliefs, but it wasn't actually changing how I was instinctively responding to stuff. It wasn't changing how I felt about things.
You weren't going deep enough.
Weren't going deep enough, exactly. Because the belief on the level of the unconscious mind is something like, I'm not good enough. Very simple. There's something wrong with me. Very simple. I don't deserve because there's something wrong with me, and I'm not good enough because there's something wrong with me. Right? And so I'm not good enough is going to manifest as about 100 different beliefs and different variations of that on the rational mind. And so I was playing whack-a-mole, trying to fix all those things. But once you get down to the emotional mind, and especially how the emotional mind and the instinctive mind connect, and start changing beliefs on that level, all this other stuff up here goes away. So that's what I started doing for my clients. That's what I started doing for myself, is get down to the level of what is the emotional construct rather than just the rational mind construct.
It would be like I would compare being in construction, putting a coat of paint over rotten wood. Instead of digging to the rot, digging it all out, clearing it out, and building it back up.
Building a new foundation, building an entirely new foundation, right?
Yeah.
Because if you've got that core belief that there's something wrong with me, and you change it to there's nothing wrong with me, that changes so much, right? Because all of a sudden you're not the problem anymore.
And all the things attached to that belief just gone.
Yes.
It doesn't exist anymore.
You go from I'm not good enough to I am good enough. All of a sudden, guess what? You don't have to do all that stuff to try and prove shit to yourself anymore. You know? So the biggest things are there's something wrong with me and I'm not good enough. And because I'm not good enough, I don't deserve. But there's another belief that actually starts that whole chain, and that is emotions are pain.
Interesting.
Because think about it, you burn your hand on the stove, your hand starts to hurt. What's happening? Well, you didn't yank your hand off the stove because it was burnt, because it was hurting. You yanked your hand off the stove so you get burned, but you're too slow. So now you got another problem. Your hand's burned. And your body has to alert you to that fact so you can do something about it. So what did it do? It makes your hand hurt. So that you'll look at your hand, realize it's burned, and fix it.
Make you aware.
Make you aware that there's a problem you need to fix, right? And so we have physical pain comes from a physical wound that's caused by physical trauma. Makes total sense. And the narrative everybody's running by is emotional pain comes from an emotional wound that's caused by an emotional trauma. But the thing is, the emotions you feel, that physiological reaction you get when you feel sad, when you feel grief, when you feel anger, when you feel panic, is not pain. That's your body preparing to take action of some kind. It's getting ready to do something. It's not asking you to fix it. It's asking you to do something about what's happening in the world out there. That's not pain. That's not pain.
What is it?
But if you're that's your body getting ready to take action of some kind. Right? If you get angry, you're getting ready to fight. If you get scared, you're getting ready to run. If you get anxious, what are you doing? You're getting ready to hide. All those are survival strategies. Right?
Right. Yeah.
So that intense sensation you feel isn't pain. It's your body preparing to take action to do something about something that's in the environment around you. But if you're interpreting that sensation as pain, where do you look for the problem? You look in here. Because that's where you're feeling it.
Well, and the typical knee-jerk reaction is to deny it and run from it.
Deny it, run from it. Yeah. Yeah. Which means not only are you not dealing with the thing in the world around you, you're telling your mind you can't help but solve the problems that it's trying to show you. And since these are usually like survival level issues it's trying to solve, what does it do? It fucking yells at you harder, yells louder. You're not listening, so it yells louder, makes it more intense. And it doesn't shut up until it's pushed you too far.
And that shows up in loss of jobs, unfulfilling, broken relationship after
Shows
broken
up in,
relationship.
oh man, all kinds of stuff, all the ways we screw ourselves up, all the ways we have to self-medicate to make that stuff go away. Yeah, absolutely. Just because we think emotions are pain. So we're looking in the wrong place for the problem. The problem's out there. It's not in here. We need to stop trying to fix ourselves. We need to start figuring out how to navigate the world better. But until you get over that idea that emotions are pain, you're always going to be looking inside yourself for the problem. And that's why you think there's something wrong with you, because you're feeling this stuff inside.
That's deep.
Yeah.
And eye-opening. Very profound. Great information. So
I had to suffer a lot to figure that shit out. So, but that's the thing. That's the thing. My mind was too stubborn to let me die. Like at 9 or 10 years old was not the only time I felt like ending things. I've had to load a gun in my hand several times in my life.
Well, I mean, don't you think over time you just become conditioned to that, where you just build up a tolerance to it? So things got to get really, really, really fucked up for you to pay attention to it?
No, not necessarily. Not necessarily, because it's a warning sign, right? It's a warning sign that says things are really screwed up, and like they're not going to get better unless you make some major changes, and so and you're not going to be able to do that at the way you're going, so you might as well put yourself out of your misery. So it's like, okay, you got to wake the hell up, right? Is it something you just get used to? No, it's hell. It's hell every single time you have to go through that. It is not. No, it's pure freaking hell. But if you are willing to suffer through that, you do find an option. You do find something that'll let you, find a way out of whatever hole you're in. But you have to be willing to sit there and actually face that and sit in it long enough for you to find that next solution or that next option or that way out.
So this is what you do. You bring people to that solution.
Yes.
How do you do that? How did you accomplish it? Besides the things you listed, what was the core thing you rely on now when these things come up? Where do you go to address it and solve it?
So for me, the number one tool that I use anytime I'm feeling bad about something is I get curious. I just get curious. Every single emotion I feel is asking me for help to solve a problem. And it's trying to show me what kind of problem it's trying to solve. Okay. So
let me stop you right there. So in the past, you would run from it.
Oh, absolutely.
And now, having done the work and accomplished these things, it's become a newfound curiosity. It begs the question. It wasn't that emotion, that circumstance wasn't there to hurt you and make you run. It was there to make you pay attention, right?
Yes. Every single negative emotion you feel is your mind asking you for help to solve a problem in the world. Right. And as soon as you start looking at negative emotions that way, your experience of them changes massively. Because then it's not, number one, you're not interpreting it as pain anymore. So you don't have to have that instinctive survival panic of trying to avoid the pain. So you disconnect your emotional mind and your instinctive mind. So now your instinctive mind is not treating your emotional state or your mood as this threat to your survival. If you think about it these days, when you add up suicide, drug overdoses, and alcoholism, deaths of despair are the number one leading cause of death in the United States of America today. Our emotions are literally fucking killing us.
Wow.
Our emotions are literally killing us because we're interpreting them as pain.
And they just handed out Band-Aids for this medication.
Absolutely. Yeah. And we self-medicate in a number of different ways. Yeah. We self-medicate by chasing success. We self-medicate with drugs and alcohol. We self-medicate with sex. We self-medicate with exercise. Self-medicate with cold plunges. We self-medicate in just about every variation you can possibly imagine, right? Because we're interpreting it as pain. And because we're interpreting it as pain, that activates your instinctive mind in that survival circuit. And what you do with an animal that is in too much pain, you put it out of its misery.
Put them down.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's freaking tragic because it doesn't have to happen, because emotions aren't pain. You don't have to live as if they are. And once you stop living as if they are, which granted is not necessarily easy to do,
No, it's not easy.
you got to do some really deep work to be able to make that happen. But once you do, all of a sudden, negative emotions aren't an enemy anymore. They actually become your friend.
And the work it takes is what increases its value, and the experience of having to face and do that is what makes it so fucking valuable and sustainable. That's the
100%.
quality.
And if you think about this, like getting something you want in life is like solving a series of problems, right?
Mm-hmm.
If I got to do a certain amount of work, I got to do this, I got to do this, I got to do this, I got to solve this problem, I got to solve this problem, right? Well, if your emotions are trying to tell you what kind of problem to solve, that makes everything easier, because the hard part about solving problems isn't solving the problem itself. It's trying to figure out what damn problem you're supposed to solve.
There you go.
It's the diagnostic piece, right? Trying to figure out what the heck it is that I'm supposed to be doing here is the hardest part of it, because once you figure that out, it's easy. So if your emotions are giving you clues about which way you're supposed to be going and what you're supposed to be looking at to figure out what the problem is, that makes figuring out the problem that you're supposed to solve that much easier, which means it becomes easier and easier to get the things you want in life, because you're listening to the clues that your mind has given you. And after a while, you get to a point where either A, you know what problem it is to solve, B, your mind tells you what problem to solve, or C, you're stuck, but you know what the questions you need to ask and who to ask it of. And once you get to that point, everything you want in your life becomes inevitable, if you're willing to sit there and listen to the messages that your mind is telling you, even if you don't want to hear them. And that's the problem, is because we interpret these emotions as pain, everyone wants to avoid them, and we don't want to listen to what they have to say. We don't like it, so we run. And we end up stuck in these problems over and over and over and over again forever.
Repeating the cycle over and over.
Exactly.
Getting worse, actually.
Yeah.
How do you do that?
How do I do that?
A quick overview. We don't have to get into
quick overview. Yeah, well, I use hypnosis, because these are programs and these are systems of belief and algorithms that are running at very deep levels of your mind. You can't get to it from your normal waking state. Your mind is just not constructed to do that, right? The reason I use hypnosis is that the other tools that give you access to that, things like breathwork, things like psychedelics, are creating experiences that you don't really have a control over, right? They give you beautiful insight. They take you to some amazing places, give you some amazing idea of what's going on down there, but you don't get to control where you go. And often when you're in that state, you don't have the capacity to do any integration or do any change work while you're down there. Why? Because you're high on psychedelics and you don't have the capacity. Right? So hypnosis is different because it allows us to enter that deep state where we get access to the unconscious mind, but we can do it in a controlled and directed manner. So it can actually go ask the right questions and go for the actual belief sets that we actually want to change, and do the work while we've got that door open. So it allows us to not only gather all the information we need to figure out what's actually happening, what the belief sets actually are, where they actually come from, do the work to change those beliefs, make sure they stick, and then we'll come back to waking reality.
And you facilitate that.
And I facilitate. That's what I do. That's what I do for a living. And the beautiful thing is, because we're looking at these deep, very core, very basic, very low resolution beliefs like I'm not good enough, I don't have to sit there and deal with the 101,000 different things that have happened to you in your life that made you get to that sort of conclusion. I just get to deal with all of it in one go. So it actually you can actually make some really, really huge changes really, really fast. Like typically, it doesn't take more than 2 or 3 weeks to get somebody to where I'm at, to where emotions are no longer pain. There's nothing wrong with them. They're good enough as they are. They deserve whatever the heck they choose, and they're just going to go out and get it.
People hear that, they're like, there's no way that's possible. Just because the mainstream tells you how much you have to do and what you got.
Of course.
Like, they just think that it's not possible. There's no way I can overcome a
100%.
lifetime of limited beliefs, conditioned behavior in 3 weeks.
Yeah, I know. It does sound insane. It absolutely does. But the reality is, all the other stuff that people are doing are not even looking at beliefs at that level. You're still playing at the rational mind level. You're not even touching this stuff underneath. So of course it takes forever and ever. Of course it doesn't work the way they wish it would. You got to get down really deep. And you got to look
guys,
from the system.
I'm not discouraging reaching out for help for therapy. I'm not
Yeah.
discouraging that or bashing that by any means, because that is a useful tool. I mean, if that's the thing that keeps you hanging on, but the point is there's a solution, a real solution that works
Well,
fast.
you know, the thing that when I was going through all that stuff from 2019 to 2022, when I was on my self-improvement jihad, like every single thing that I did helped.
Mhm.
Everything, single thing that I did, you know, I got some improvement. I got some relief. I got, you know, less pain. I got more understanding. Things were a bit easier to navigate life. It's not like they didn't work. It's that they weren't trying to solve that core deep problem, even though they said that's what they were trying to do,
Mhm.
because the way that they were structured weren't able to get deep enough to do the things that we really needed to do. So it's not like don't go to therapy, don't go do somatic stuff, don't go do psychedelics, don't do all this other stuff. No, do it. If that's where you're at, if that's what you need at the moment, do it, because you will most likely get some benefit out of it. Not always, but most of the times you're going to get some benefit out of it. And when you're in pain and when you're really stuck, any benefit, any movement is going to get you moving in a better direction. So go do that. And when you're ready to do the really good deep stuff, when you're ready to face the things about yourself you really don't like, when you're ready to question the stories that you've been telling yourself about who you are and why you are the way you are and what happened to you and what that did to you, that's when you come to somebody like me. Because until you're ready for that, you're not going to be able to get the results that you really want, because you're not willing to be curious. You're not willing to be wrong. You're not willing to face the things about yourself that you hate the most. And that's what's required to really do the deep work.
That's it. Man, look, I preach this to the guys. You got to put your big boy pants on and go into the deep, dark crevices where the shit really exists. That's good. Look, sometimes you need some positive reinforcement. You get to sit with a therapist, dump your shit out, and you feel better, but it's temporary because you're not getting solutions. You just, it's just like pressing a pressure relief valve. Like you just, so you feel light for a couple of days, and then something comes up, you're triggered with the old limited belief, and you're back in the same hole. Or you go through a breakup, or you go through a job loss, or you go through a weird interaction and things just won't seem to go your way. And you're always going to default back to, I'm not good enough. I don't deserve this. There's no way this is possible for me. I've never done anything right. You know, and
No, and the thing is, that moment of relief, hitting that pressure valve to get a little bit of relief, if that gives you 2 weeks to go do something better and something more, do it. Right. But instead of relying on that pressure relief, hold on just a second. Instead of relying on that pressure relief as your only way of dealing with problems, what the heck is wrong with my camera?
Put your finger close to it. Forward. Now go back to your face. There you go. Oh, try it.
Huh.
It fixed. There
we
it is.
Go. There we go. Awesome. So anyways, instead of relying on the pressure relief valve every time you get bottled up, use the pressure relief valve to get yourself the space you need to deal with the real problem.
Yes.
Right?
I wanted you to get to that.
Yes, you want to leverage these things, even if they don't work, even if they don't solve the problem you really needed to solve. Use that momentum to keep doing more work. Use that to fuel the harder stuff. You know, that's the big key there, is you have to use that leverage. You have to use that leverage to do something even more difficult, even more challenging, because that most challenging work is where you're going to get the biggest results, right? It's not doing the easy stuff. It's not doing the easy stuff. You got to do the hardest stuff.
Profound results. You understate it. You're understating I remember after our session, I think it was like 2 weeks later, I'd run into something and I just went right through it. It didn't stall me. It didn't slow me down. I didn't get in my head about it. I didn't take it personal. It was just, I breezed through it. It wasn't until a couple of days after I'm thinking back, I'm like, damn, that didn't even cross my mind. Wasn't even a blip on my radar. Like in 2 weeks before that, I would have reacted totally differently. I would have taken that so personal and gotten so down on myself about it. There was nothing, like a fart in the breeze.
Yep.
And that's no exaggeration.
We were talking about emotional vulnerability before. And one of the things that is fascinating about kind of getting to this place where I've gotten is that because I don't define emotions as pain anymore, you can't hurt me.
God, dude, how valuable is that? that.
Which means I can show whatever the hell I want because you can't hurt me with it.
Yeah.
I can be vulnerable. I can be transparent. I can own everything. I can say, yes, I'm freaking bipolar. Yes, I got arrested because I lost my freaking mind. Yes, I was suicidal at 9 or 10 years old. And there's nothing you can do with that that's going to hurt me because I own it all.
It's just
I
part
own
of
it
experience.
all. It's just part of my experience. It's not who I am. It's something that I went through.
Dude,
So you can share that and nobody can hurt you with it.
Can you come back for a part 2 on this?
Sure, absolutely.
Because I want to get a little deeper into that. And
Mm-hmm.
we're a little over an hour. And we got a couple of questions to field somebody has for you.
What do we got?
And
Mary been joining or in the Corps? I'm assuming that you're talking about joining the Red Pill.
no, Marine Corps.
Oh, the Marine Corps. I can't really advise anybody to join the military these days.
I wouldn't.
I can't. After what they did to everybody in 2020, 2021 with the pandemic, after what they're doing with the DEI and the woke stuff and what they're doing with trying to like hunt down white nationalists and everything else in there, I don't know anybody who is a serious patriot and joined the military for the right reasons that would be there now. There's a lot of people who have been leaving. The recruiting has gone through the freaking toilet. I wouldn't do it. I would stay the heck away from the military right now. I would not advise it at all. If you're in and you're close to getting your 20s so you can retire, I mean, maybe suck it up. But I left with 11 years total because I could do more on the outside than I could do in there. And I was just not seeing anything worth doing in the military anymore. So I can't recommend it.
Good answer. Joel, I just went off my first round of tests. What year did you start tests?
I think I started it, let's see, I was 37, so that would have been 2011.
2011.
Yep.
That's how old I was.
Yep.
Then, let's see here. Joe, what's your take on talking to your male friends about your relationship problems? Don't talk to your male friends. They'll make it worse. They don't, not intentionally. They don't know what to tell you. They're clueless. Get a coach. Invest in yourself, invest in your life, and invest in your future of healthy relationships. Talk to somebody like me. Talk to somebody like Ryan. And if there's, and what the real important question is, what problems keep reoccurring? What's my pattern? What keeps happening that seems to sabotage or dissolve my relationships? Talk to Ryan and get to the root of it.
And I'll tell you what, there's nothing wrong with blowing off steam.
No, but don't go looking for answers.
Don't go looking for answers. Yeah. Blow off steam. Don't go looking for answers. Girls have it better. I don't know that they do.
Not really, buddy. You're a fucking male. You get the genetic lottery being born a man. I don't want to hear that on here, DT. No whining. We have it better. Girls do not. I would, 10 out of 10 times, I would pick to come back to this life as a man.
100%.
I love being a man.
100%.
And man, look, we ran a little over. No bullshit. I want to go round 2 on this. We got more to talk about. You said a lot of great things.
Thank you.
And
whenever you're ready, happy to come back anytime.
And guys, look, if you want to get to Ryan, if you want to get help from Ryan, I'm going to link his information in the description. I believe Joel's going to put the website and your IG on there. If you want to throw your IG in the chat, Ryan, feel free. Even if you want to plug your website in there. And look, I cannot overstate this enough. And he breezes over it because he's been through it. But believe me when I tell you, this will be the most effective change you'll ever see imparted in your life. Doing hypnotherapy with a real qualified hypnotherapist like Ryan. Profound. I mean, I don't know another word to plug into it other than something corny like magical. And it's just
one other thing I'll mention is I am working on a book right now to kind of explain all this stuff. It's probably not going to be out until later this year, but I am going to get that resource out to people so they can kind of have that whole framework that I've been able to put together through all the stuff on my journey. Like, you pay a price. You really pay a price to try and figure this stuff out, and you pay a price to to understand yourself and fix yourself. You pay a price living life in the hard way. And if I can make it a little bit easier for someone else so they don't have to suffer as much as I did, do that all day long, every day.
Yeah. So check up on his Instagram. He's starting to post some more content. He makes a lot of really good little shorts about certain things, his own experiences, and overcoming certain things. Give him a follow, keep up with his stuff. And you get to be there when the book comes out. And I will definitely have him back on here. And maybe y'all we'll make less time we'll make more time for questions and, what I mean? That would
Always
be
love
awesome. Man, look at Extra Guac. You remember him?
Yeah. Did a photo shoot with him up in Philly. That was great.
That's him.
Yeah,
In the house.
he was
Good
phenomenal.
to
Glad to see you're still doing well, man.
Yeah, good to see. Well, I love seeing the people that I came into the space with still out there thriving. I love it.
Yeah.
So, anyway, guys,
Anyway,
thank y'all for tuning in. Fucking amazing show, Ryan. I don't even know what
thank you
else
so
to
much.
say.
Thank you so
Way
much.
exceeded my expectations of how good I thought it was going to be. Way better. And obviously, great seeing you, great catching up. Great to hear all the positive things. And everybody, if you haven't yet, hit that like button, subscribe, and notification bells for the next upcoming show and other content that I put out weekly. Well, multiple times weekly. I don't know how to say that. So, and we'll definitely have, that's my son there, Ryan.
There you go.
So, yeah, we'll definitely have him back on, and we'll make a priority to answer some questions and talk about some. Look, I got a lot more questions for him. Trust me, it's going to be awesome. So he may not be. Yeah, me too, man. And he may not be here next Wednesday, but there will be a show. And y'all stay tuned for more. Thank y'all for coming. And we are out and pausing for